Alrighty, so it's time to finish the review for match week number 10 and finish off the review of the busy Saturday night action with these four games. And I know I didn't mention this in part one, but it was a rough week in terms of teams in the Western Conference because out of all the Western Conference team that was playing, which is pretty much all of them except for LAFC, only one of them were able to get all 3 points as there was a lot of draws in these Western Conference matchup. And as I mentioned yesterday in the Minnesota versus Dallas game, we actually have not seen a goal in MLS since when Corey Burke scored that equalizer against the Chicago Fire in the 88th minute, because the last three games of this week turns out to be a no-no affair. But first of all, let us actually talk about the first game between Sporting KC versus Montreal. And, this was the game for Sporting KC to finally end the nightmare start that they have, because Montreal, they've also been kind of dealing with a nightmare start of their own. But, they did eventually got a much needed win in the last game. But come on, this is Montreal. This is a team that has yet to score a single goal on the road, and a team that also haven't yet to win on the road. There's no way Sporting KC is going to screw this up even worse, right? Yeah, about that. So in the first half, and 10 seconds in, Montreal almost scored their first road goal as Ofer actually puts one into the stands from close range, and then Shrinier would hit one right to Melia before on the other end Russell would try to chip it from a tight angle, but is clear off the line by Herrera. And then on the other end, Melia absolutely robbed Ofer from a point blank effort, and Ofer was ready to celebrate. Like when that ball was hit, you can see he was kind of started wheeling around, thinking that was gonna go in, but Melia basically says no. Shari then puts it just high from close range, and this of course is a wooden spoon derby, and we've seen this happen before, where in a wooden spoon derby you wouldn't expect there's much happening, but in this game, both of these teams, you can definitely see that there are that desperation that they want to win this game, because they know that this is a winnable game for both of these teams, and a game where they can get their season back on track. But instead, it's actually Montreal, the one that gets the opening goal and their first goal on the road, and it's scored by one of their newer signings that they completed a couple of weeks ago via a trade. It's Bryce Duke scored here from Shrinier and Rhea to make it 1-0 in favor of Montreal, and it was optional defending from Sporting KC. Like, I mean, that was just the fact that Montreal was able to cut open that Sporting KC defense and find so much space on the transition. I mean, that just kind of just sums up Sporting KC defense this season. I mean, as much as a lot of focus has been on the attack for Sporting KC, which has been historically bad to start the season, don't forget about the defense. I mean, on the defensive side, they have not looked good either, and that there's been times where the goalkeeper has kind of bailed out for that. But yeah, in that play, there was no bailing out. Like, Mealy had absolutely no chance in terms of Bryce Duke just easily slots that one home to give Montreal the 1-0 lead. And then just on the stroke of halftime, they would double that lead. Is Shrinier scoring from Herrera and Rhea to make it 2-0 in favor of Montreal. I didn't know Matthew Shrinier started to be a goal scorer. I mean, that's second game in a row where he has scored a game, and the second game in a row where he scored that second goal. And again, the entire Sporting KC back line just ball watch as that low driven cross there from Herrera. I mean, it was a great cross there from Aaron Herrera. We saw that during his time with RSL, and that Montreal started to kind of get the Aaron Herrera that they thought that they're going to get. Besides the fact that he's a solid defender in MLS, but yeah, that was again just bad defending from Sporting KC, and that doubles the lead for Montreal heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Sharawi was wide open in the front post, but he was denied by Soros. But then the ball was recycled, and Sporting KC got a second crack of it, and Polito basically he had to tap him. But instead of, you would expect Alan Polito to easily tap that one in, he decided to turn his back and basically look to pass. That, I think, is a moment that sums up this broken Sporting KC attack this season, and a moment just to show you that this Sporting KC attack is simply broken. Like the amount of confidence in this attack has just been next to none, and that this is also an example of the players are just pressing too hard and overthinking thing. Because if this attack was actually clicking, and mind you, as I mentioned, with the huge concern with the Sporting KC team with their attacks still not getting going, with the likes of Polito and Russell back in the lineup. Well, they also got Gotti Kin back in this one, and yet still their attack has looked bad. And I think it's just getting to a point where maybe it's not just because of the fact that the attack is bad because they're missing key guys. Their attack is bad because of the fact that the whole attack is basically infected with this plague where they're just not allowed to score goals and are just kind of overthinking things. Similar to what I said about Minnesota United yesterday, where they also had the same problem too. Though in the 58th minute, Saros would deny Russell in the front post before he denied Showery from long range. Kina then puts it high from long range as, to Sporting KC credit, they did continue to push hard to get one back, but, knowing the fact that this is a team that is just so snake bitten this season and none of their attackers have any confidence, it was not a big surprise that, this maybe is another game where it's going to be 0 on the scoreboard for Sporting KC. But in the 7-minute stoppage time, Russell did at least look like he got a consolation goal there, but unfortunately, the goal was disallowed for offside, and it was pretty obvious that it was disallowed because Polito was in the way of the shot there, and he was in an offside position, and that's textbook definition of an offside goal, and that goal is chopped off. Montreal would win 2-0 in this one, and by the way, at the end of the full time whistle, there was heavy boos that was raining down. I mean, that was probably one of the loudest boos I have heard at a stadium in terms of home fans. These home fans had enough. I mean, and I don't blame them. This has just been an absolute horror show, and I feel really sorry for Sporting KC fans that had to go through just a historic bad start to the season that we have seen. I mean, just to show you how historically bad this is. This is the first time in MLS history where we see a team go their first 10 games without a single win, and they still have only scored 3 goals and still have actually score as many goals as red cards that they have got this season. I mean, that again just sums up this season, and I think the other thing that sums up this season is Johnny Russell reaction. I mean, if you haven't watched his reaction, you can see he looked like he's a broken man. Like the way that he said he and talked about how he doesn't know why exactly there's a problem with this team. I mean, you can tell he's just completely broken, and that's kind of the mentality of these players. Like they just don't know how to get out of just this downward spiral that just never continued to stop from the Sporting KC team to start the season. But the shots in this one, 13 shots for the 10 that Montreal has, 4 shots on goal for the 6 that Sporting KC had, 2 shots off target for the 5 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Sporting KC had, and possession-wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession that Montreal has in this game. And tomorrow, I, of course, will do a video talking about this historic bad season for Sporting KC and even looking forward to see when exactly is going to be the time where they stop this historically bad at start to the season and finally get a win. But for Montreal, they quietly started to kind of turn this season around. I mean, 2 straight wins, albeit yes, I know these last 2 wins are against the Red Bulls who are currently sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and then again a Sporting KC side that are just now at the bottom of the Western Conference since the first day of the season. Well, not really the first day because Colorado was there, but they've been now at the bottom of the standings for a very long time now. But I don't think any Montreal fans would care, or even Hernan Lasana would care. Like with how bad they also got to the start of the season, they needed these wins, and hopefully these wins will start to turn around their fortune. But moving on in terms of the next match, is St. Louis and the Portland Timbers. So you notice I'm wearing Portland Timbers for this review because, as the only team to win this week coming out of the West, you knew I had to wear the jersey of that team. And the Portland Timbers, indeed, is the only team that was able to get a win this week from the Western Conference, as they were able to win 2-1 against St. Louis. Though not much happened early in this game, which I thought that was a good job for the Timbers, because you know that you definitely don't want to give St. Louis a fast start. Like one of the things that you a lot of teams are trying to do is try not to let St. Louis run wild, especially with the press. And I thought for the most part Portland did a really good job in terms of dealing with the press. But then again, I mean, I think they're kind of used to it, and especially the way that they play. We know that this is a Timber side that tends to like to allow the opposition with the with possession and also trying to go on the counter. You just kind of had a feeling that this maybe would be a matchup that doesn't favor Louis, especially with the way that the Timbers are the road team. But in the 18th minute, we did see the first shot of the game with Vasilev fires it high from close before Larea on the other end had a long range effort that goes right to Berkey, as that was the Timbers' first shot of the game. Heber then hits it wide from close in the 37th minute, but we do head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Bowley would cross it just wide from close range before Leuven would miss just wide from long range in the 52nd minute. But it was a much lively start to this game. You can see both of these teams were starting to kind of open themselves up, trying to look for the opening goal. Berkey would deny Moreno from close, but then in the 61st minute, penalty was given to the Timbers as it was deemed that Nelson handballed that one in the box. Now, I think this is a really harsh call because with the way that, it looked like Nelson kind of fall to the ground as he handballed that one. I mean, this year in terms of the handball call, and also at times in terms of the offside call, it's been bad. Like it's been there's been times where it has been inconsistently bad, and I think it's getting to a point where I'm not even going to talk about these inconsistently bad kind of handball call anymore because there's no point. I mean, it's like yelling an old man yelling at the cloud in terms of how bad some of these decision has made. And in this one again, I feel like this was incredibly harsh. And St. Louis fan, I know that there's going to be some that's going to be pointing this as a call that cost them the game, but I'll talk about it in a bit. Why maybe that maybe mean not might not be a good excuse in terms of the way that St. Louis didn't really play a good game in this one, and that the Timber really play a perfect road game in this one. But nevertheless, a penalty was given, and Evander, of course, steps up to take the penalty, and he buries it to make it 1-0 in favor of the Timbers. And then he tried to go for a second, but he missed high there in the 68th minute before he also missed high on the free kick just a couple of minutes later, but there was no doubt the Timbers were looking to put this game away. Like they were pushing to try to get that second goal. The momentum was with them, but instead, St. Louis gets the equalizer. It's Pompey. He scored from Ostrak and to tie the game up at one apiece because that's what St. Louis do. Like anytime you think that they face some adversity and they can't come back, they find a way to do so. But unfortunately, the equalizing goal kind of meant little just 3 minutes later because the Timbers retake the lead just 3 minutes later. It's Jimmy Chara scoring from Moreno to give the Timbers a 2-1 lead, and then it was almost 3-1 when Nishikoda was trying to go for the dagger, but he missed wide despite being wide open in the back post. But doesn't come back to haunt the Timbers as they were able to win 2-1 in this one. And the shots in this one and the stats kind of just shows you that the Timbers were the better team in this one. 15 shots compared to just 7 that St. Louis had. 7 shots on goal compared to just 1 that St. Louis City has in this one. 4 shots off target for the 7 that the Timbers had. 1 shot that was blocked for the 2 that St. Louis had. And possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that the Timbers has in this game. And I think there's definitely now a book on how to play the St. Louis side. And I think that book kind of started when we saw them lose to Minnesota United, where, the Loons kind of gave that blueprint in terms of, if you can just maybe let St. Louis had all the possession and ask them to see if they can break you down. And also decided to not make those silly back passes that we've seen this St. Louis team is able to capitalize over and over again. You have a shot to beat St. Louis City. Though I will also say for St. Louis in this one, they really miss Joe Claus. Like I've said it before in that review between Atlanta and Nashville of how Atlanta really missed Yakimakis and his presence in terms of the whole upplay. It's the same thing for St. Louis City. João Claus, of course, not available after he got picked up a knock in the last game, and I haven't heard any word of what exactly the injury and how long they're going to miss him. But yeah, they really miss him in this game in terms of the hold up play. And I think for Bradley Carnell, you got to say that maybe this is where he really needs to have a plan B and start to kind of change things up because that's kind of how it is in MLS. Like you're going to have teams that's going to start to figure you out, and I feel like teams are starting to figure out how to play against the St. Louis side, and that it's going to be up to St. Louis and certainly up to Bradley Carnell to adjust things. And I have faith that he's going to do so because I think the one good thing and the one bright note I would say about St. Louis, even doing this rough patch that they're going through, this team don't give up easily. This team has some fight as they they've shown in terms of able to get the equalizer, but unfortunately, just a couple of minutes later, they found themselves back in the situation they found themselves in the 63rd, which is behind in this game. But that being said, moving on into the next game, and now we get to the part of this video where if you like goals, then maybe you should turn off this video. I mean, of course, I would love that of course isn't the case, but if you are expecting me to talk about goals, it is not found in these next two games because I would like to say that both of these games were kind of similar, where there was no goals in both of these games, but it was not because of lack of trying, and that kind of was the case in this one, where again both of these teams they definitely did not found their shooting boots in this one between RSL and the Seattle Sounders. But in the first half, 5 minutes in, Vera would hit one into the side netting as it was a shout for a handball, or actually, not a shout for a handball, but a shout for a penalty for the Sounders that was not given. Bear then hits it wide on the set piece, as I thought the Sounders got themselves into this game and were looking for the opener. But as soon as I wrote that, Rubin had a free header in the 18th minute, but because of the fact that Rubin has been one of the most snake-bitten number 9 in the league, and he joined the 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 numerous players or the numerous number 9 that are just cursed this season. Yeah, he's gonna miss that. He heads that one wide. McMath then denied Aber from close in the 21st minute before on the other end, Savarino would hit one into the side netting before Aber would pulls it wide. And again, I feel like at that point a goal seems to bound to happen because both of these teams were creating some good chances, and that it looked like eventually somebody was going to score because of it. But in the 43rd minute, Vera would pulls it wide from long range before on the other end, Fry would, or actually not on the other end, but Fry would deny Rubin from long range in the 45th minute. And we head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Morris would miss a header in the front post, as once again I thought the Sounders were on the front foot early in the second half. Rusnak then puts it high from the free kick before Ruiz with fires it high from long range. The fans at the riot then remind the referee he sucks because there was kind of a call that the referee definitely did not agree with, or the fans did not agree with the referee, and they basically decided to chant "Ref, you suck." Which, by the way, I am kind of surprised that we haven't seen a lot of that in the league this season. I mean, there's been some bad refereeing decision, and I'm surprising fans haven't chant that and haven't remind the ref that he really sucked, because I think maybe that's the problem in MLS. Maybe fans are not reminding the ref that he sucks, and that it doesn't give him enough pressure. The fact that, yeah, maybe you should of course make the right call, or else you're going to hear it from the fans. But that being said, the game was up for grabs again, with both teams having their fair amount of chances to get their opening goal. But the question is, who can be better in terms of finishing? Because up to that point, both of these teams were pretty bad in terms of their finishing. Not as bad as what we saw from the game between Minnesota and FC Dallas. Just to let you know. And again, yes, that game is still fresh in my mind because of how horrendously bad that game turns out. But in the 77th minute, Morris would blast one into the stands, beside being wide open from 10 yards out. Again, Jordan Morris, he'd love to have that one back because he doesn't miss that often. Then there was another shout for a penalty for RSL that was not given, and then Jackson would puts it high from 18 yards out before Krylak would pulls it wide as the flag went up there. Demir Krylak, of course, making his return after been coming off once again off the IR this season. And then in third minute stoppage time, we get a second yellow card from Pablo Ruiz, and yeah, that was kind of really the last thing notable thing happened in this one, as in the end, it ends in a scoreless draw, and the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 12 that the Sounders had, but the shots on goal basically tell the story. Only 3 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Sounders had. Neither of these teams were very good in terms of finishing. 9 shots off target for the 8 that the Sounders had. Both teams had 3 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, the Sounders did have the better of the possession, 57% possession compared to 43% possession RSL has in this game. But, overall, I mean, I guess both teams would be happy. I mean, it's not often that you see a team can get points off of Seattle, and that I think RSL would be happy with that, even if they drop points in this one. And for the Seattle Sounders, it was kind of a game where they'll be frustrated that they didn't get all three points, despite there was the chances for them to do so. But again, anytime we get a point on the road, it's considered a good thing. And also, they're now back at the top of the Western Conference. So yeah, even with the draw, they'll be happy. The fact that it will get them back at the top of the Western Conference, at least at the time being. But that being said, moving on into the last game of this review, and the last game I'm reviewing for match week number 10. And as I mentioned, this was a game similar to this one where not only it ends scoreless, but it's not because of lack of chances. And really, this was a game where it was the William Yarbrough show because Vancouver had their fair amount of chances in this one to at least get a goal or two in this one, but William Yarbrough just said no. I mean, he was determined to not give up a goal in this one. Also, shout out to Takioka too. He also made a couple of big saves to keep the Vancouver Whitecaps in this one too. Though that being said, early on the Whitecaps were on the front foot. White missed a header wide before the first shot for Colorado came as Barrios would hit one into the side netting, and then Takioka would deny Rosenberry, and then there was a scramble in the box for Sioux, but the Whitecaps very fortunate they would eventually clear that one out before the Rapids had a chance to get maybe a second or even a third crack in front of net. And then in the 17th minute, Yarbrough would deny White as he pushed that one onto the post. The possession was 70-30 in favor of the Whitecaps. Yeah, that's something you do not see often like that. This is not a team that is known for possession, but I think Robin Fraser saw the fact that, well, knowing the fact that this is a team that's known more for its transition, we're gonna be happy in terms of trying to sit back and trying to ask the Whitecaps whether or not if they can break our defense down, which this is a Rapids defense that has been much more improved in the last couple of games compared to what we saw in the beginning of the season. Vite then hits it high from close before goal would miss wide from close also in the 39th minute. But we do head to halftime with the score scoreless between both of these teams. And in the second half, Yarbrough would deny Brown from close range as straight off the bat the Whitecaps were pressing for the opener coming out of the half. And then Bubakar did put it into the back of the net, but the problem was the goal was disallowed because a foul was called in the box, and this was way before when Abubakar puts this one into the back net. So yeah, it was no doubt that goal, of course, was disallowed. But White then pulls it wide from close in the 63rd minute as the Whitecaps getting some chances again, but can their finishing be a little bit better? Again, it's been kind of lacking up to this point. Though Yarbrough would then deny Ahmad in the front post before he denied Martins from long range, and then he denied White again in the 70th minute. And again, this is where the William Yarbrough show really kicked into high gear because he was just making save after save and just kind of single-handedly keeping this game at 0-0 and giving this Rapids chance at least maybe create a half chance for them to get the opening goal, which they had a big opportunity to do so because in the 78th minute a penalty was given to Colorado after Brown fought down Lewis in the box. So here's Rubio, a big chance to put it in from the spot, and Takeo says no. He denied him from the spot there. This was also a rough week in terms of penalty kick taker. Like I think we had maybe three penalty kick that was and only one of them was converted. I think if that's correct. I'm not sure if that is exactly correct, but all I know is that it was a rough week in terms of penalty kick taker because I also know there's another game where a penalty was missed, and that was in the game between the Revs and Cincinnati where Petrovic denied Acosta in the box, and in this case, Takioka with a big save there to deny Brown uh, from the spot there. But another thing I also want to know is that despite the fact that William Yarbrough was sensational in this game, he actually was not in the team of the week. In fact, it was actually Takioka, the one that is in the team of the week. And I get it. Takioka did make some big save, especially denying Rubio from the spot there. But I feel like William Yarbrough should have been in the best 11 or at least be on the bench because he was really for a long time the reason why this game was at 0-0. Though in the second minute of stoppage time, Betcher did try to change that, but he missed wide on the header. And yeah, in the end, it's another scoreless draw. And in this Western Conference affair, as the shots in this one tells you that the Whitecaps had a lot of chances. 21 shots compared to just 7 that the Rapids had. 5 shots on goal for the 2 that Colorado has. 3 shots off target for the 10 that the Whitecaps had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 6 that Vancouver has. And possession-wise, Vancouver had the better of the possession. 61% possession compared to 39% possession that the Colorado Rapids has in this one. So yeah, very frustrating game for the Vancouver Whitecaps. They just could not solve Yarbrough in this one. But for the Rapids, I think they'll be happy coming out of this. I mean, I know the missed penalty that would be very frustrating in Robin Fraser mind, and I feel like they're starting to kind of have a little bit of the same problem that Toronto FC has, where they're drawing a little bit too much, and that they're not winning games. Well, actually, a little bit too much is kind of an understatement. They've been drawing a lot in these last couple of games, but considering the fact that this team looked like they were doom and gloom for the first couple of games of the season, I think Robin Fraser would take it. But now it's all about turning these draws into wins, and we'll see whether or not if they can do so. That goes the same for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Again, another missed opportunity to get all 3 points at home, which has been a problem this season. I mean, there's been times where they have left the points on the table, and that's something that's going to drive Annie Sartini crazy. And especially if this is a team that want to make it to the playoffs, they cannot do this where they left points at home, because we know this is not a good road team, and that when you don't pick up points, especially all 3 points at home, yeah, most likely you're probably not going to make it to the playoffs. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of these 4 games to finish off my review of all the match week number 10 games. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.